द राइट कन्वर्सेशन में आपकी मुलाकात कराने जा रहे हैं हम डॉक्टर विजय सजावाल जी से। आप देख रहे हैं द राइट न्यूज और मैं हूं रोहित भट्ट। थोड़ा सा आप जानते हैं कि डॉक्टर विजय सजावाल जी किसी इंट्रोडक्शन के मोहताज नहीं है, लेकिन थोड़ा सा मैं इनके बारे में जरूर बताना चाहूंगा। प्रोफेशनली डॉक्टर विजय सजावाल retired as a nuclear expert who advised the US government on the nuclear deal between the US and India. While professionally active, he had the highest level national security clearance from the US Department of Energy. विजय जी, आपका बहुत बहुत डॉक्टर साहब आपका स्वागत है द राइट न्यूज में। डॉक्टर साहब, सबसे पहले हम जानना चाहेंगे कि जैसे बहुत सारे लोगों को पता भी, हमारे दर्शकों को पता होगा कि रिसेंटली आपने एक विजिट किया कश्मीर में, एक ट्रिप किया कश्मीर का। तो वो उसका सारा एक्सपीरियंस क्या रहा और क्या लगता है आपको उस ट्रिप से? आप क्या बताना चाहेंगे उस ट्रिप के बारे में?
Again, namaste to every listener. بہٕ چھُس ہٮ۪کان کٲشِر پٲٹھۍ تہِ کَتھ کٔرِتھ بہٕ کَرٕ ہِندی پٲٹھۍ تہِ تہٕ انگریٖزی پٲٹھۍ but as it is in America, English has become the most common factor, so I will apologize to all of you. بہٕ کَرٕ زیادٕ کَتھ انگریٖزَس منٛزٕے. That way I can speak faster and get my message conveniently over the line. First of all, I'm speaking strictly on behalf of myself. I represent no organization, and either in India or overseas. I'm speaking on behalf of myself. I have made numerous trips to Kashmir. Now, Rohit ji just now asked me what led you to the latest trip. I'll tell you what led me to the latest trip was an interesting turn of events. It started with the sad news. The sad news being the death of Shri Rahul Bhatt in Chandura, and because that fascinated me in a curious way, that a Kashmiri Bhatta government official working in the government office in a government building actually is killed. Essentially, somebody had to come in, point out who he is, where he is based, what chair he's doing, because there were 7 people in the room. And I got thinking, I got to do some more digging into this, because this doesn't look like, this is a crime of passion, or this is like, hey, kill one and 100 will run away. This seems to be much more a defined mission in terms of why he was killed. And that got me into actually making my contacts with the people that I have. Now, over the years, I have made numerous trips there, and one of the fortunate things was when I was advising the U.S.-India nuclear deal, both to the Indian government folks as well as to the American folks, and I got into a close relationship with the National Security Advisor of India, obviously the Department of Atomic Energy, but a lot of people who were basically in the intelligence community within India, as well as also in the United States. And that gave me opportunity to come to India quite frequently, and I would then basically sort of buy a ticket and head to Srinagar, and had used to get a security cover and all that those days. And so I created actually a number of groups there. There were groups involving Kashmiri Pandits, there were groups involving professional women, there were groups involving journalists, because I would basically want to get their opinions on various issues. So I got a good network of people there. So after basically when Raulji passed away very sadly, so I went into that network, and I did an analysis of the situation, and it was really a shock and a learning experience of how deeply Jamaat Islami was essentially involved into the day-to-day activities in Kashmir, while it was being done sort of post 1996 by so-called civilian governments. In effect, really, to put it very simply, Sayyid Ali Shah Jilani, when he was in prime of his health and all that, he was the de facto Amir, not only of his party, Jamaat Islami, but he was Amir of the valley. He was actually running the de facto chief minister of the valley, and his word was a law, and it was under his command people would live or die depending on how he felt about that person. And I will tell you by indication that the role that was played by, I'm not surprised about the chief ministers who were basically subservient to him, but the role played by the governors, who should have actually done a better job. I see governors today in Kerala, in New Delhi, and all that, which are much better than the governors that we have had historically, or in Kashmir, who kept a silent eye in terms of what was going on. But given all that, I will also tell you one thing very interesting I found out, that he actually had told people that I don't want to see Kashmiri Pandits being killed, because they are small in number. There are a few here, and I don't see any reason why they should be sort of bashed with the Indian stigma, and they are living their lives. And if you notice, actually there was no killing of Kashmiri Pandits from after Nadim, from when he took over, headed the Tariq Hurriyat, until his failing health, which I can also discuss in a few minutes. And the first killing was of Ajay Bharti, which happened actually when he had already been sort of set aside. Uh, so in that period, so people are asking, why was no Kashmiri Pandit killed? It was not courtesy of any government in the state. It was courtesy of Ali Shah Jilani, who basically had given that order. And I know personally of instances actually where he saved Kashmiri Pandits who were at the wrong place at the wrong time in those turmoil days in the valley. So I put this report together, and what I found out also was, today Jamaat Islam is really spread all its tentacle all over the place. They are all everywhere in the government, and essentially there is this overground workers which have been created, which are essentially the go between the bureaucrats and the ultimate killers, so-called militants, as we are called. They are called in Kashmir, and essentially somebody in the gives a Mr. X gives an order to Mr. Y to arrange the death of Mr. Z, and he goes to some killer and makes that happen. And so the killings are not random; they are actually done with a very active support of overground workers. So my recommendation was that, quite honestly, as long as the that issue, the nexus between the bureaucrats and the OGWs is not broken, the situation is not going to change. But it's definitely going to get worse if you bring in the civilian government, and essentially remove the LG's role. In other words, remove it as a have the elections. Elections are inevitable, I understand, but elections will also lead to an increased threat to the minorities because of the excuse me, I'll have to shut it off.
Okay.
I'm not be able to. So they the the because of the fact that the civilians will play a role in moderating the efforts by the police, but it will be worse, quite frankly, if you return back to the statehood. Because in the statehood, what happens is that basically the civilian politician takes over the complete security apparatus. They are in charge of the apparatus, and I said that will be a death knell to the minorities if actually the nexus between OGWs and the bureaucrats is not broken. Now, having said that, the report actually ended up actually going up to the Chinar Corps in one way or the other, and I found
Right.
out that they actually distributed that report quite a bit. And later I found out, of course, when I reached there in the valley, that they had also done a report on the targeted killings, and that report, a 32-page report, was given to the center, but they had not gone to the level of the weeds that I had done, which was basically looking at how the OGWs and the bureaucrats are operating. So I had named names and things like that. So they distributed that report as sort of a corollary. But that became the setting for me to actually go to the valley back again and get a little bit more information about what's going on. Now, the situation in the valley today is, quite frankly, you can always say on the surface it looks better. I mean, there are tourists, like, droves coming in. They are all over the
Right.
place. That they bring a certain vibrancy in the place. There's
Right.
a lot of color. There's a lot of humor. People are singing on the streets. I mean, there's really today, if you were to go to the valley, not just Srinagar but anywhere, you will find the mood is completely different. Now, a lot of people will tell you also that underneath it there's a lot of tension and there's a lot of feelings like that. And I will tell you, that part really one has to understand what is the biggest achievement of this government being the BJP government in Delhi. The biggest single achievement, which people don't realize, is that they have pretty much destroyed Jamaat Islami power in the valley, and to a large extent, of course, they were also helped by a number of factors. And I will actually go into this thing a little bit more detail, because I don't think it has been discussed by anybody so far in the
Right.
level that I found out. Now, here's the thing: 2014, the BJP government comes at the center. Then there's an election down the road in Kashmir, and BJP has this innocent factor saying that, hey, let's team up with PDP, which is which is which is kind of like mixing oil and water, because we will have a sort of a help on, we'll have a positive impact on them. Maybe we can actually turn around and make this government more meaningful, more nationalistic, and all that by teaming up with these people. So there are very autistic reasons for that relationship at that time, and that stayed, quite frankly, uh, even as they thought there were some issues there. Then what happens is that the big change really came when Burhan Wani was killed. When Burhan Wani was killed, which was in July of 2016. I mean, the whole valley went up in the in the power. So you had a very interesting situation where you had actually a BJP government in Delhi and a BJP government in the state, and the state is burning, or the valley is burning. 85 people, as far as I remember, were killed in that turmoil. And they finally, BJP woke up. They said, we got to know more about what the heck is going on in the valley. And of course, what they found out was exactly what I said earlier, which is this place had nothing to do with Mehbooba Mufti and all that. This place was being run by Saeed Ali Shah Gilani. And this is one government at the center, with all its deep state, with all its security apparatus and intelligence apparatus, decided we got to break up this man one way or the other. And it was very interesting, because then the wheels started turning. So they basically went after the after him. Suddenly he found out he couldn't anymore make calls to the bureaucrats, and they would get up and say, yes sir, and things like that. And actually he was so upset, I'm talking about Ali Shah Jilani, when he refused the parliamentary meet people who came from parliament, non-BJP people who came to he refused to meet them. And actually people didn't understand why he was not meeting them. He was not meeting them. This is in 2016, September 2016. He's not meeting them because he has suddenly found out that BJP government is not anymore treating him as the Amir of the valley. And so he was basically in that, he was basically showing his anger. But the wheels are still turning, government is still squeezing, and the big thing came about was Zahur Watali. Now it's very interesting. Every time before I would go there and I would talk about Kashmir and Kashmiri journalists particularly, they would say, Vijay Saab, until Zahur Watali is not arrested, this is all mockery. He is well known to be the main funder, conduit of funds between, and he enjoys perks in Delhi, he enjoys perks in the state. And as long as Zahur Watali is running around, we know that Indian government is just faking it, that they want to do something with Kashmir. They're not doing it. So as a result, Zahur Watali is taken into custody, and suddenly the squeeze comes on. This is on August of 2017, and suddenly the squeeze comes on the party, that money started drying out. Hurriyat's money started drying out, and Pakistan makes an interesting proposal. Pakistan makes a proposal that what we're going to do is we'll be sending the drugs through the cross-border trade agreements, and Hurriyat should be doing basically selling the drugs and using the money from the drugs to further their separatist agenda or anti-India agenda. Now, here is the interesting thing. This is a very important element there. The important element is Ali Shah Jilani rejected that option. He said, I'm not going to go into the drug trade to make the drugs, because Kashmiris are basically Kashmiri Muslims, and these boys and girls, I'm not going to make them, drug addicts this way. So actually, that discussion carried on until basically he resigned in 2018. A year later, not in a later, I think it was August 17. Vatali is arrested. March 18, 2018, he resigns. And he resigns, and of course, there's a Jamaat Islami faction is divided. The person who takes over is Ashraf Sarai. Ashraf Sarai was to be till then, deputy chairman and general secretary of Jamaat Islami. He takes over, and he runs the thing until, of course, he's arrested and put behind bars. And then, very soon, Jilani Saab resigns from the organization, and then eventually, even gets his board removes the board of the Tariq from his house, and then, of course, dies in 1st of September 2021. So it's a very interesting case where essentially the factions of Jamaat Islami have been broken up, chopped into pieces. There is still an extreme wing still around. Let's not misunderstand that. But by and large, they are running around today, wondering where they will settle in the political stream that's going around. Now, a lot of people probably have noticed that Mehbooba Mufti's star, which was kind of down after the August 5th, 2019, is beginning to rise again. Certainly, she's getting more coverage and all that. And part of the reason is that, in a sense, government, I think, is facilitating many of those Jamaati people to actually register under her party, so that they want to mainstream some of these people from being outliers in anti-separatist movement to become part of the mainstream Indian Kashmiri politics, which is still, again, in a dubious sort of manner. But the fact of the matter is that is the greatest achievement, is actually the breakup of Jamaat party into pieces. They were very much consolidated. They were single. I mean, people don't understand, when Kashmiri Pandits left Jamaat Islami with Hizbul Mujahideen, their militant organization, they had these Islamic terms. They started using Islamic terms for the houses left by the Kashmiri Pandits. They'll be Betul Imal or something like that, which was meant to be that they'll be all for good of the Islamic welfare, and the land was Ahad Hudud, which would be, essentially, again, used for common good. Now, what they were trying to do is exactly what they did in the elections, which is they would tell people, don't fight the elections, so common people will stay away, but then Jamaat people would actually come and vote, and they all would vote for, primarily for PDP, but they would vote. So the same thing they did with the land and the house purchases. They would tell everybody, you can't buy it. It's it's for the common good of the Islamic welfare and things like that. But they actually ended up buying it. So most of the distress sale houses, most of the houses have been bought by Jamaat Islami militants or Hizbul Mujahideen militants. And so, in a sense, you are actually, and they would name the price, and that's how those sales went. So you have to understand, when you are talking about returning, getting those houses back, you are not dealing with a common, Muhammad or Ghulam Rasul or something like that. You're dealing with somebody who was part of the original cadre of either Jamaat Islami or Hizbul Mujahideen. So keep that in mind, and think about what that can or cannot do in terms of consequences that it may have on the people subsequently. And of course, we can talk a little bit more about it later, about Kashmiri Pandit, because how these all these issues end up to be making the concern for the people who are obviously very concerned, Kashmiri Pandits who are concerned about their personal safety in the valley, as well as things that are going on there right now. I hope I was clear how this development
Right.
has taken place, and I'm not
Yes,
sure
yes.
if there is anybody who has actually explained it in the manner that actually these things
Right.
are.
डॉक्टर साहब ने बखूबी ये एक्सप्लेन किया, और मैं बढ़ना चाहूंगा आगे अपने अगले सवाल की तरफ। जो मेरा प्रश्न आपसे रहेगा वो ये है कि कश्मीरी पंडित जो वैली छोड़ के नहीं आए, उनके लिए आपने बहुत काम किया, उनके लिए आप काम कर रहे हैं। क्या आप कश्मीरी पंडित जो वैली छोड़ के नहीं आए, जो कश्मीरी पंडित जो पीएम पैकेज एम्प्लॉयज हैं, उनकी मुश्किलें जो हैं, उनके जो प्रॉब्लम्स हैं, उनको सेम देखते हैं कि दोनों की अलग-अलग प्रॉब्लम्स हैं?
Well, अब तो कुछ the differences have less now. But I tell you, Kashmiri Pandits in the valley have sacrificed a lot. I mean, first of all, let me acknowledge without unapologetically, I am very, very sympathetic to them. Not only am I sympathetic to them, I really salute them. I salute them because they are the true guardians of our culture and heritage in the valley. They are the ones who are keeping the faith. They are those 11 families which we talk about once who saved our culture in valley. They are those people. So let's not forget that part. That is very important to understand, because when my first trip took place in I think it was like 2007 or 2008. uh, 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 I went through Jammu, and Jebis was one of my क्या छ सजोल सब तो करा इमची ये कीड़े हैं क्या नाली के कीड़े हैं, ये तो सब मुसलमान बन गए हैं. I mean,
Oh,
it was so shameful, because when I reached there, and I actually, one group I told, and they said to me at that time, तो ये आज शाम नशा ऐसे रात से मंडली लगाऊं इन सक्रीश्वर पर तो ये तो. And I went there, and I tell you, I was crying most of the time, because you could not get that kind of a feeling. Even today, it emotionally pulls me down, because that feeling you cannot get anywhere. You cannot get anywhere the feeling that you are with, Shaktima. You are there, and that is a feeling that is completely impossible to get, no matter how many places you name outside the valley as being the places where we can bless, or we can get blessings from God, Bhagavati. So they are the ones who kept the religion going. And the sad part was, when eventually, after the package was made for the PM package employees, and they were going to be given benefits. And it took still another 4 years between 2008 and 2012 before I'm sorry, 2004 to 2008, before the SRO 412 was initiated. I made so much effort to tell people that no, SRO 412 should apply both to the people who are in Jammu and elsewhere, as well as to the valley people, because valley people had also actually migrated. They had migrated from their homes into the district headquarters. They were made to go into his district headquarters for safety, so they were also not living in their houses. I could not get a single KP leader in Jammu to tell me, even though I cultivated two, three of them. I hate to say it, I cultivated two, three of them with the idea that when you go and make slogans for SRO 412, put a slogan there saying it should apply to Kashmiri Pandits in the valley also. Never happened. So Kashmiri Pandits fought on their own. They went all through the process. I helped somewhat, but they were the ones who did it. They got the SRO 425 done. SRO 425 was for that it should be extended to the valley people. Then immediately after, the six basically took them to the court, and then it was put on the abeyance. Just in March of 2019, they finally got the relief, and of course, then August 5th happened. So it was only later then finally the new job opening started saying about, they apply both to the SRO 412 and as well as SRO 425, and so the job started happening. But the fact is, people in the valley are not in the same merit qualifications that people outside the valley are. They don't have the same level of schools and quality of education. Then it has improved now if you go to the private schools, but so they have been always at a disadvantage. And one of the promises, I'm telling you, one of the promises that was made to them was that there will be a set aside of 500 jobs for them in the package. And unfortunately, that promise was not kept. My good friend, that basically, Sanjay Tikku, that basically handled this package. He has gone on hunger strike twice. In fact, the second hunger strike was so bad, he's still having the effects of the ailment as a result of that hunger strike. But they did not treat them well. So you have really a situation, I would say, that the political emphasis of this package does favor the people not from the valley but from outside the valley, and that is a source of concern to the people in the valley. The other source of concern also is that the access to the administration people has 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 been reduced. And part of the problem, unfortunately, is not because of them. Part of the problem is actually are the people who are in Jammu and elsewhere who are getting a little bit more thing. But I can tell you, I'm quoting you directly from a source that has actually from the valley that has actually told me this, which is that the Manoj Sinha is really a little bit perturbed that Kashmiri Pandits only talk to him when they have to talk about money. They come to him only when they are dealing with money, whether it's salary, whether it is give us money for temple. They never talk about their emotional feel. What can we do on a volunteer basis? Because I'm told that he even gave an authority to somebody to go and in Shupian to be in charge of the temples and all that. And the first thing he says is, I need a house, I need a security guards, I need this much money and that much money, and he basically lost interest after that. So there is a negative feeling about the community with the LG. Let's not kid ourselves why he's being like that. Now, people may not agree with me. People may say, he's basically, he does come across as essentially a good manager, but lacking empathy and compassion, perhaps. But the fact is that we have seen transactional side of our way of life, and that is really influencing a lot of things there. Everybody is looking for example, even in the package issues right now, people are only talking about, what happened to my salary, where is my salary. There are a lot of other issues also equally important, but somehow they don't seem to be important in the nature of things that are evolving there.
डॉक्टर साहब, आपने आज सुबह ही एक ज़ूम मीटिंग में बोला था, मॉर्निंग में इंडिया टाइम के हिसाब से एक ज़ूम मीटिंग थी आपकी, जहां आपने बोला था कि कश्मीर के जो हमारे केपीस के जो लीडर हैं, वो ज़िम्मेवार हैं इस चीज़ को लेके। जो हालात अभी बने हुए हैं, वो ज़िम्मेवार हैं। क्या ये सच है? ऐसा कुछ बोला था आपने? और
No,
आपने क्यों बोला?
no, I didn't say it. I didn't say it that way. Maybe he took it that way. But what I said is, usually the leadership actually takes the voices from the ground and then takes them up. मैंने कहा कि usually हमारे community में the voices are coming from top down. By that, what I mean is essentially the agenda for the Kashmiri Pandits these days seem to be set by the national networks. National networks, for TRP ratings, as you know, Rohit, they basically want you to speak, say things like Pakistan, the jihad, things like that, because they are doing this program. They need to get the eyeballs and the TRP and so on and so forth. So they have that challenge. So they want to catch any Kashmiri Pandit leader who is willing to basically sing that tune. And so everybody is vying for that kind of a voice where they are essentially only talking about. And the tragedy is many of these people are not even remotely know remotely about what is going on in the valley itself. But they definitely know what will play on the Indian TV. So I'm saying Indian TV is playing rather a very destructive role as far as the value-based Kashmiri Pandits are concerned. I'm speaking it from their perspective. And when Indian TV is playing destructive role, all those KP leaders who are showing up on these networks and are essentially basically playing to the gallery, and that creates a problem. So you look at all the press releases and all the memorandum and all that have gone. I mean, 30 years, 32 years is a long time, and they're all saying the same. I mean, nobody's challenging and saying, what are you doing differently today? Do something different. Show us some progress. But, it's always, get me the advisory committee, get me this, get me that. I'll tell you, for example, let's talk about BJP. BJP, as I said, big credit to them within the valley. They smashed Jamaat Islami. Outside, what did they do for the KPs? Let's talk about that for a minute. Essentially, where we are with respect to them is really borne by there was a certain degree of uncertainty until Amit Shah came to power. Amit Shah came to power. I mean, when I say Amit Shah came to power, I mean Amit Shah became the Home Minister. When he became the Home Ministry, he put a clarity in that. And I'll tell you, he had 3 meetings, to my knowledge. Maybe he had more, but 3 meetings to my knowledge, which was exclusively with KPs. The first meeting, was with the KP BJP leadership. Took place at the Sher Kashmir SKICC auditorium. It was on 26th of June 2019. 26th of June 2019. That means it was a few months before the August 5th. So when he was working with, Jetli and all that, getting that program going so that it will end up to be, the August 5th will end up to be the day when Parliament will pass um, the resolution on removal of abrogation of Article 370. So in that meeting, he basically tells them interesting things. And I'm telling you, I'm saying that again today because I want Kashmiri Pandits to understand how politics is done in India. Yeah, it's sad to say a person sitting 10,000 miles away is talking about that. But I'll tell you what Amit Shah said. This is not my language. This is what Amit Shah's language is. Amit Shah said that I thought all along that you Kashmiri Pandits vote for, play up with BJP and vote for Congress. But once I became the Home Minister, first thing I asked for is the voting rules of Kashmiri Pandits. And he said, I found out you guys don't vote at all. So it's not a question of you voting for A or B. You guys don't vote at all. And he said, you have to understand that he gives a lecture to these people. He says, I don't care if you vote for BJP. Vote for somebody. Vote for Congress. Vote for somebody. Show your political identity. You have no political identity. He said, then he went into explaining how Muslims, even though they lose most of the elections in which they vote, but the fact is that they have established political identity because they vote. Now, consequent to that meeting, I'm only taking this part. I actually had a number of meetings with All India Kashmiri Samaj people and all that. Hey, how do we do it? And we even had actually a gentleman in Bombay who is an IITian who actually had a contract with the Election Commission of India. He was actually in a position to change a few things to make it more convenient, for Form M and all that stuff, to do it a little bit better so that we could actually register our people and vote within the constituencies that, in fact, he made an attempt at one time that the constituencies will end up to be only three, one in Srinagar, one in Nagar, one in Baramulla. So the numbers will go up and all that. Poor guy tried very hard. But the fact is, at the end of the day, the word was back that no, we will not do all that stuff. That's bothersome. We will vote locally, as our people do vote. They vote all locally in the local elections as local residents of wherever we are, Gurgaon, Faridabad, wherever we are. We're not going to vote, essentially identify ourselves with the valley. So his point was, unless you don't show yourself as a political identity in the valley, even though you are on the, you may not win, it's not going to work out within the Indian system. But that was his take. Now he goes further. Then he says, basically, I do have a plan for Kashmiri Pandits, but I cannot get them back with a sense that there will be a security threat, that they will not survive. So what he said was, my first goal is to constitutionally ensure that J&K becomes totally an integral part of India. Now, he didn't tell them that in 3 months I'm going to have Article 370 removed, but he actually implied that in that one. So that was the step number one. The step number two, he said, was that I'm going to make sure this threat of terrorism ends. It's going to take a little longer, but it will end. I promise you it will end. That was number two. Number three was that I will have economic revival in Kashmir. And that will only happen, quite frankly, we'll make some attempts right now until the terrorism doesn't end. Until the terrorism doesn't end, I cannot have economic revival of the kind I want. And finally, he said that finally, when the revival happens, Kashmiri Pandits will return. So he had a timeline in which we are basically at the 10. Now, we can always argue, hey, Kashmir, we are suffering right now. What about now? What about now? So, and then, of course, in that process, he basically mentioned about so-called clusters, safety clusters that are being built, and which the audience confused. He was really referring to these tenements, the transit camps that are being built at various districts. He called them safety clusters, and people got confused. And that was in the second meeting that took place. So the second meeting was when he had actually a meeting with where people met him in Delhi, and these were two prominent groups. This was on February 18th, 2020. And there he was very clear that he was given this list of demands, and he went item by item and told them why I can't do what you are asking me to do. So,
Right.
and that included advisory council, that included genocide, that included lots of things. He basically told them, sorry, I can't, these things will not work here. And of course, and the third meeting was very interesting. Also, very few people there. That was in 2021. It was on the 9th of September, 9th of October. I'm sorry. And he said, you know, the plan right now, first part is gone. I mean, we have done the constitutional change, and the terrorism part is going on very strongly. We are for every one that they kill, we are killing two or three of them, and so from his point of view, he's on top of this phase of terrorism, and it is continuing right now. But he will eventually pass it by. Hopefully, the economic and the eventual cycle will come
Right.
through. So that's where the BJP is now. Whereas our community's leaders, rather than thinking and planning and synergizing, okay, what do we need to, how can we help him, how can we do things, it doesn't matter, it could be Congress government tomorrow saying the same thing. I'm totally opposed to the idea of I'm pro BJP or I'm not, I'm pro KP. For me, KP welfare counts. So instead of what do we do? We are still issuing the same darn press releases, same memorandum, same things. Have a advisory group, have a this group, have do this, declare genocide, declare this. It's not going to work. He has already made it categorical, and as far as I'm concerned, BJP is good for another term after this. So we got to live with Mr. Amit Shah and his plans on Kashmir, and we got to figure out if that are his plans, how can we use them to our benefit? I used to have at one time a meeting with the old days. I'm talking about. I'm taking you back almost 24 years back. It was a discussion I had with courtesy. I'll name him because it doesn't. I have great respect for him because I used to be the foreign coordinator, international coordinator for Kashmir as Kashmir was created. And I was to tell, and when at that time I was to tell Ajayji, Indian government is like a lava that is flowing down the mountain. If you want to stand in front of the middle of the road and say, I want this, okay, the lava will eventually take you over. I mean, it's not what you have to do is you have to sit on the side and say, can I direct this lava into some other direction than the direction that it's coming in? Because you cannot block the lava. They will move. If your role is only going to be to put a roadblock to that lava, it's not going to stop. But if you think about how it can be moderated, directed elsewhere, and things like that, then you are going to see some possible changes. I think that is the challenge our community leaders have. The community leaders are not thinking sort of in a spatial time. They are not thinking the politics is dynamic. Every day is different day. Every day has to be a new strategy. You cannot stay with the same statements that you have run over and over again for decades. And this is a tragedy we all collectively, in a sense, are suffering from.
डॉक्टर साहब मैं ज़रूर शेयर करना चाहूँगा एक और बात कि कुछ ही दिन पहले 1-2 दिन पहले ही मैंने एक वीडियो देखा। मैं नाम कोट नहीं करूँगा, हमारे इंडस्ट्री के कश्मीरी पंडित हैं, इंडस्ट्री के बहुत बड़े एक्टर हैं। वो एक वीडियो बनाते हैं कि हम कश्मीर जाएँगे, हम अपना घर लेंगे, ये लेंगे। मतलब लो, करो, करके तो दिखाओ, वीडियो बनाने से क्या होगा? मतलब वो वीडियोज़ में ही ब बोल रहे हैं सब कुछ, हम डोमिसाइल हो गए, ये हो गए, अब हमें घर लेना है वहाँ पे। या तो आप लेके देखो घर, अपने करण व्हाटएवर जहां पे भी आपको लेना है, घर ले लो पहले, बाद में वीडियो बनाओ, उसी घर में जाके वीडियो बनाओ। पहले ही वीडियो बना रहे हैं, तो ये एक प्रॉब्लम है जो चल रही है। डॉक्टर साहब, मैं एक और बात जानना चाहूंगा कि कश्मीरी पंडितों का भविष्य कश्मीर को लेके क्या लग रहा है आपको? और दूसरा सवाल ये रहेगा साथ में ही कि क्या लगता है आपको कि जो आम कश्मीरी पंडित है, उन्हें क्या करना चाहिए इस सिचुएशन को टैकल करने के लिए? अब क्या करना चाहिए उन्हें?
देखिए, मैं let me talk about कि ये जो the idea was of the prime minister's package. I need to spend a minute or two talking about it.
जी,
Prime minister's package was not created actually for the best and the brightest that are showing up right now. Prime minister's package, it started with the work that was done by the ML Cole committee, was the finance secretary in JK government in 1996, 97. And he has actually at that time proposed three clusters in the three districts, which were soundly rejected by the KP leadership in Jammu. They said, we are not going to come back. Then they basically then they worked differently, and they created this. So his legacy actually is this. What I will call the protection of the properties, Migrant Property Protection Act, that came around in 90. I think it was in 97, September 97. So that was his legacy, because he couldn't get people back. But then, when the Manmohan Singh government came along, he created an interagency group under the Planning Commission. It was a really very powerful group. Had directly secretaries reporting to this lady from Jammu, who was in the working at that time in a Planning Commission, Miss Shushma Chaudhary, IAS, and she had this group that was reporting directly to Prime Minister Manmohan Singh. So a tremendous clout. And so she takes the Prime Minister takes a trip to Jammu camps, as you know, in 2004 November, I think it was, and talks about that he has a plan, he's going to do it, and she's working on it. December 2008, she actually takes a trip to Jammu, and almost to every word, every leader denounced. There's absolutely no way we're going to go to Kashmir. We're done with this. You find us a place here, and we are going to live here. Find us a place outside the valley, not in the valley. And that's how Jagti was born. Jagti could have been as well been in the valley, but people rejected it. They said, no, we don't want to have it. Now, once that was done, then they started thinking about the fact that all Kashmiri Pandits are bright, educated people. They can find jobs anywhere in the country. So the only segment that needs help are these people who are working in the fields, because who have orchards. They are from villages. They are not well educated. Their children are not well educated. You have shopkeepers. They are shopkeepers and things like that. So how will we take care of them? So this package was actually created on that basis. Now immediately opposition came. You cannot create a package for a community. It's under Indian constitution, it's illegal. You cannot do that. And hey, these people have suffered, and then people would tell all the sufferings that are taking place in India. India is a country of million mutinies. Even other day, when you heard about this thing in Rajasthan, where a community basically sentences the other community to rape of their wives and their children. I mean, look at the kind of horror that is, where your daughters and your wives are getting raped as a punishment, and that's worse than death, in my opinion. So you're talking about a country which has tremendous amount of problems. We don't, Kashmiri Pandits don't look beyond their bubble, but actually the country has lots of socio-economic problems. And anyway, they said, no, we can't do it for a community. It cannot be done. So eventually it went through a very complicated process, which included the approval from the parliament. And they had to bring in Supreme Court. Supreme Court had to bless it. And eventually this package was created. But package was not created for the educated top tier Kashmiri Pandit people. It was created for grade 4 positions, for essentially for the people who are going to come back to the valley, stay close to their take jobs close to their own properties and orchards and things like that, look after them. Now what happens is, of course, eventually it took from 2004 to 2008 before the job things were carved out. So the first tranche was 1,600 jobs, and 32,000 people applied. So they are in a quandary. What do we do? We have 32,000, and we have the JKSSB and all that has been constituted now and all that. So the word went, hey, you have to be fair. You have to take the 1,600 most qualified people in that 32,000 bunch. So you have this anomaly where you have actually people who are overqualified for the job. You don't have the people really for whom these packages were meant for. And so it's so interesting for me to tell these people, and I'm in touch with the people in the PM package. And we can talk about a little bit more about that later. I am in touch with them. And I'm explaining to them, it's not only a political reason that BJP is not going to do it, because BJP will not admit that would be amounting to essentially a defeat. So BJP is not willing to admit defeat. But more importantly, there's an institutional reason why your job will not be relocated, because it was not meant for you. It was meant for people who are actually closer to the land. And that's how this package was created. And so this talk about, our only demand relocation is quite frankly, again, shows you the level of, I don't mean people are well-meaning, I mean, a person doesn't know all this. But if you darn well want to be a leader of your community, then you better understand the polity of the place, understand how the logic of how these jobs were created, spend a few minutes understanding how the politics of the state runs, and then make a statement. So all these people telling them go to Jantar Mantar, go to this, I mean, this is basically playing politics. I'm sad to say, but Kashmiri Pandit leadership has failed them terribly in this scheme. Now they are going to these fringe organizations in Jammu who are into the right of the, who think Amit Shah is soft. I mean, you say that to a Muslim in Kashmir, and he will laugh at your face when you say, "Hey, we have people who even actually believe Amit Shah is a very soft guy," and that is a challenge. So we got to worry about these people. These people need to come back. And you talk about buy a house and then speak something, but actually the fact is, the good news right now. Let me give you the good news right now from the valley.
Right.
I've been talking about a lot of bad news about the KPs. The good news is there are actually three things that are happening there right now. One is, and these are all nascent. These are all small steps. You don't think they've gone in a big way. First one is, there is actually groups which are see if we can get employment, self-employment, not government jobs. We can create small businesses. People are being sort of, for example, an organization is actually Cockney Foundation. Cockney Foundation actually has bought 3-4 Innova these vans and given it to KPs to act as basically tourist agents, tourist guides, and take credit for all the tourist trade that is coming in. And so they are putting, and they're doing other things also, but there are groups now actually looking at giving some private careers for private employment for people. That's one thing. Second thing is, there are actually people building houses, Kashmiri Pandits building houses in the valley. And in fact, one of my friends is actually found a sort of a pre-cut design. It's a triangular frame house, and which can be put on any site of your choice for about 25 lakhs. Very reasonable, very reasonable when you compare Indiranagar prices. Indiranagar house prices are around 4 to 5 crores right now. And finally, here's an interesting news. Finally, there are marriages taking place between KPs who never left the valley, from one area to the other area. In fact, 3 marriages that I haven't received invitation for. You remember, first week of December is a Kashmiri Pandit marriage week, and I'm sorry I couldn't be there till December. But there are marriages taking place which are organic, which are all within the valley, among the Kashmiri boys and girls, Pandit boys and girls from the valley. So you have actually an organic growth happening within the valley. And so you can, all these people can sit on the outside and surmise what's going on and point to the death of A, B, C, and D. But the fact of the matter is, you have to be in the valley to understand what the dichotomy of the situation is. Are there risks? Absolutely. Let's not kid ourselves. I'm not going to minimize the risk that exists. But if somebody is determined to kill you, I'll be very honest with you. Somebody is determined to kill you, he will kill you. We know that even yesterday when that Shiv Sainik guy in Amritsar, with 3 security guards, 2 SOHs and 1 PSO. I mean, they killed him. So that's not the point. The point is, are these killings directed by Pakistan? Are these killings for jihad, for the sake of jihad? That where some may be, some may not be, but I can tell you this categorically: none of the Kashmiri Pandit killings are related to jihad or are related to Pakistan. They're all local reasons for it. I'm not going to go into the reason, but they all have local reasons for it. But as I told you, a lot of things have happened which has increased the threshold of risk for them. And we're not talking only about the August 5th. We're talking about digitization of revenue records, where Patwaris are fighting tooth and nail outside the valley. Now, in the valley, in the Srinagar itself, most of the digitization has been finished. In fact, they have given land passbooks to 90% of the people. But outside the Srinagar, they are fighting it. And the reason why they are fighting it, these Patwaris are fighting it, Naib Tahsildars are fighting it, because I think they have done Hera Fairy. They have essentially sold some land which belongs to Kashmiri Pandits to non-Pandits, and they are afraid that will all be exposed. And in fact, you can argue that could be one of the reasons also that is affects the Kashmiri Pundit's life and death right now, because the guy knows more than he's supposed to know. And so you have that. Then you also have the fact that what was it? I had written some reasons. The land laws changed. Land laws changed by the end of the year, and actually they have liberalized the laws. Now, a lot of land that was not meant for use, both for industrially and otherwise, has now been made available, and that itself is causing a lot of problems. And last but not the least, let me be very honest with you. I mean, I'm talking about Kashmiri Pandit point of view, not the one who are in the valley. They did feel the heat when Kashmir Files was released. I mean, they did feel it, and they were apprehensive, and they felt, quite frankly, if the film would have stayed with the content of historical content, which cannot be disputed. The movie had that. The only political element in that film was about Article 370, which was, quite frankly, in my opinion, unnecessary, given the fact that was not central to Kashmiri Pandit's point of view. In there, I was there in those days. I mean, our center point of view was we were treated as B-class citizens. Our point of view was we were denied jobs, we were denied promotions, we were denied professional college entrances. Those were our, we had bread and butter issues of those kind. We did not get justice in those manners. I don't remember my family and families anywhere around me actually going and making a march on Article 370. That was a BJP slogan, that's for certain. But I think that politicized the film, in my opinion. I think the film is very important. It's very compelling. It's a historical document. It you cannot deny it because it's truth. But bringing politics in it was really not the right thing to do. This is my opinion, and I think this is the opinion that's shared with everyone, every one of the Kashmiri Pandits who is in the valley, whether he's from non-PM package, PM package. Everyone feels that film did raise the heat on them, and they were put on a defensive.
राइट। डॉक्टर साहब, समय की कमी होने की वजह से ये सेशन हम ही खत्म करेंगे, लेकिन मैं उम्मीद करता हूँ कि आप फिर से हमें समय देंगे, टाइम देंगे, क्योंकि मुझे लगता है आज बहुत सी बातों पे पर्दा उठा, बहुत सी चीज़ें ऐसी थी जो अनसुनी थी, जिसका बारे में लोगों को पता नहीं था। बहुत-बहुत धन्यवाद डॉक्टर साहब आपका हमें समय देने के लिए, और बहुत जल्द हम आपसे रिक्वेस्ट फिर करेंगे कि हम किसी और विषय पे ज़रूर बात करें। थैंक यू सो मच डॉक्टर साहब।
Thank you very much. I appreciate you and your audience, and the people are free to write to me, to send me an email, messages, whatever. I will be glad to follow up.
थैंक यू सो मच।
Thank you very much.